Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spagnola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mystery of life. I'm your host, Carmen Spagnola, joining you from the lands of the Insultion-speaking peoples of the Okanagan Nations, where I gratefully live in a rural area a short drive away from a small town known as Summerland, BC. We have a really sweet episode queued up for you today, my friends. My guest today is one of my fellow guides in the Numinous Network, Asteria Elzea. Asteria hosts a monthly community check-in call on the network where folks share what's going on in their communities right now. It's a really nice place to be witnessed, to seek emotional support, perhaps crowdsource some resources, and soak in some contact nutrition with really good-hearted and like-minded folks who really value that kind of community building. This monthly session is called Tea Time with Asteria, and it usually happens around the fourth week of the month, usually on a Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Asteria is a coach with expertise in community building. Her special interest is people and how we connect. Asteria is trained in connection, actionable goals, and trauma-informed facilitation with Beautiful You Coaching Academy, also with Desiree Adaway. Hands up, praise up for Desiree, phenomenal teacher. Asteria has also done all 3 levels of my own facilitation training program. She's a certified data analyst and a practicing witch, and we share a lot of interests like growing food, tending roses, decolonization, and pulling the rug out from under capitalistic, white supremacist, patriarchal society. Asteria also lives in LA and was evacuated during the devastating fires that destroyed parts of that city earlier this year. I wanted to speak with her about that recovery, but also the larger economic and social shifts underway in these times, many of which are concentrated and have been accelerating in LA, not just this year under occupation by the government and under attack by ICE, but also for a number of years, like economically. So it's not just the fires. Asteria has been preparing for times like these by preparing her community. And I hope you're inspired by her example as she tells us just how she's done that. So, my friend Asteria, what identities do you lead with?
I'm white, I'm bisexual, I'm a witch, I'm alternative or punk, I'm non-binary, I'm queer, I'm polyamorous, I'm a crafter, a creative, a painter, and I'm a community builder and connection educator.
Did you even say you're a coach? I feel like you're so many other things too.
Yeah.
That was a lot, but that only captures like a little bit of who you are.
I'm many. I'm multiple.
Yeah. You are a multiplicity. So
Yeah.
I'd love to focus today on your art and theater and production background, especially. Yeah. Let's start with tell me what's one of your favorite professional experiences as an artist and a culture worker in LA?
Yeah. My favorite theater I worked at was the Kirk Douglas Theater here in LA. It's part of Center Theater Group. And boss there, his name was Sean Myers. Just want to shout him out because I loved working there because I've worked over hire theatrical production crew in a lot of theaters and a lot of different venues and a lot of different places. And the Kirk Douglas and Sean himself prioritize the experience of overhire employees. A lot of places treat us like fodder or like replaceable. We'll just get anyone else if you won't do something or you can't do something. And
is overhire like something like non-union? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's extra people that the theaters hire outside of their regular staff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so replaceable, anyone can, it is skilled labor, but anyone can do it. And the Kirk Douglas prioritized us and taught us how to do things. When Sean taught me how to do things when I didn't know what I was doing, they made sure to get breakfast for us every day, even though it was a slightly lower rate than other theaters. I enjoyed working there because often we got a break in our hours there to where we would get to leave early, or they tried not to push you too hard because they knew the rate wasn't as comparable, and really treated us as human beings.
So it sounds like that's not the case in a lot of places in the industry. Am I getting that
Yeah.
right?
So in the theater and film industries here, it's like they're kind of preying on people's dreams. So everybody wants so badly to be in theater and film, and there's this feeling of you should be willing to do it for the art of it, especially in theater. And so people pushed really, really, really hard. I actually moved out to LA to be a scenic painter, and that was in 2000. And I found very quickly that I wasn't going to put up with it. With the hours, like 10 to 12-hour days, it was going to be too hard on my body. Being a painter, you have to like lift and carry 5-gallon buckets. And I've actually now 10 years later found out I have Ehlers-Danlos, so I'm chronically ill. And I knew then that my joints weren't going to handle 5-gallon buckets regularly. We also found that the scenic shops were quite a boys' club, and I could either like be one of those people that's really strong and puts up with that and changes it, or not. And I prioritized my peace.
And your health, I would imagine, like that just would talk about erode your strength, yeah, that doesn't sound like worthwhile.
From there, I moved into art directing on special events and then the overhire theater work as a theatrical electrician. And I remember
Cool.
that I had a point about my early career, but I don't remember what my point was.
Okay. No, that's okay. I was going to ask you, like, where did you come to LA from? And that must have been a really big deal. That must have been like a huge risk.
Yeah, I moved to LA from Missouri. I grew up on a farm in northeastern Missouri and also in Columbia, Missouri, which is a cute little liberal town in the middle of the state. And I moved out here when I was 21. I drove a little red Toyota Echo out by myself and stopped at a lot of spots on Route 66 and made it a whole trip. I met up with this cool event called Station to Station, and I got to see Beck in the desert, and it was amazing. And then I started my first job on the day I got to LA. I worked on this Halloween theater production called Wicked Lit that was done in a mausoleum, this huge, beautiful mausoleum. And I made like 40 of my best friends immediately. And they're still family. I've known my best friend since the day I got to LA when she told me to go push a dead body off a roof.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so that brings us to the other theme of this conversation. You also do a lot of formal and informal teaching about contact nutrition and community. So, can you tell us first of all, a bit about how you explain, just like really briefly, what contact nutrition is when you like are a person who can meet 40 best friends on day one in a new town? How do you kind of spring this on them? And then, yeah, tell us more about some of your favorite like events and workshops you've put on where you've really specifically tried to foreground contact nutrition.
So I will say contact nutrition is definitely more recent than for me than the 40 best friends. But when I talk about contact nutrition, I tell people it is the building blocks of attachment within the nervous system, and that there are 5 types of contact nutrition: kind eyes, vocal prosody, shared rhythm, and ingestion behaviors.
And safe touch.
What?
And safe touch.
And safe touch. I always forget one out of the 5. And they are actions that you can take to build safer attachment with people. So kind eyes is looking at people with soft eyes, activating the mirror neurons in their brain. Vocal prosody is the quality of your voice and adjusting it to the situation and to help regulate the situation. Meeting and matching someone else's voice. Shared rhythm can be so many things, but it's like dancing or singing together, breathing together in a yoga class, or doing something at the same time every day with someone else. And then ingestion behaviors are eating and drinking together. And so there's so many ways that we can actually physically practice those things, and it's incredibly easy to build safer communities that way.
And do you think it just kind of came naturally to you? Like, do you have a certain facility with all the kinds of contact nutrition, or like how do you make 40? I don't even know 40 people I want to be friends with. And so like are you a person who just like naturally has the ability to like spark mirror neurons and meet and match and attune? Has it always
Yeah,
been that way?
there is a possibility that that's true. I grew up with a mom who was difficult, and so there was definitely like an onus on me to regulate situations. But also the like contact nutrition you're getting with people when you're doing a theater show with them is so much because you're showing up at the same time. So that's shared rhythms. We were doing 3 shows a night or 3 different shows at a time in 3 different time slots every night. And so that's a lot of shared rhythm. You're in the mausoleum for 6 weeks together. So I think that a theatrical community was the best one I could have possibly found immediately. How many people get dropped into a situation with 40 people at all?
It's wild to me that you found a job on day one. Like, how did
Um,
you even do that?
the summer theater, I went to Stevens College, which is a women's college in mid-Missouri, and they had a summer theater in Okoboji, Iowa. And my professor, Dan Schultz at the summer theater, hired a friend named Doug Clayton because Doug lived in LA. And so uh, Doug, I was the painter for the sets, and I met him there. And then Doug knew they needed an assistant stage manager for this mausoleum show that he was working on. And he connected me. And
Cool.
they, yeah,
That's so
cool.
awesome.
Again.
Yeah. Yeah. Just knowing people.
Yeah.
So, film and TV production industry has really been suffering for years. And I've heard this from you even before the fires that
Yeah.
happened in LA this year, which I have to say, I had to look it up. I couldn't believe that was within this year. Just not that it so much felt so long ago, but just so much has happened that, like, how could that have fallen off my radar that it was actually still this year, you know? So there's that. That only made it worse. So, what has it been like for you as a disabled creative person in the aftermath of the fires, but also just the aftermath of the industry depression? Like, how are you surviving?
Yeah. So the industry has become depressed from like production slowing down during the pandemic shutdowns. And then also we had a bunch of really necessary strikes after that because people realized that they had been overworked. They finally got a rest. And then they were like, oh, wow, those conditions are not acceptable. And the production still was so slow, and they moved a lot of production to other states also because of just needing to go on with them or not wanting to deal with the winds of the unions. So the production industry has been depressed for years. And then we did have the fires this year. And I know more unemployed people than employed people here in LA. And that's been true for at least a year. And like, I got a job in cannabis during the pandemic because I had to have a job and there wasn't any production. And I've had trouble as a disabled person finding work since then. Like, I got a data analyst certificate, and then the tech industry fell apart. Multiple people I know are working for the video game industry here, and they keep doing layoffs every year. So they know none of their jobs are solid, and they can get treated really badly, or the company can decide that their salaries are lower than they originally decided in the contract. And that's the company's right, but they'll be like tied in by big bonuses into the contract so that they can't leave themselves. even though their salary's been lowered.
That sounds
So that
wild to me that that's the company's right to lower their salary. Like, what
it
a,
just doesn't seem contractually like legal.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's hard.
so that's really hard. No one has stability, not even very wealthy people with the tariffs. And then we've had the fires where it burned most of the Pacific Palisades in Altadena, which is a primarily Black community that has stayed unincorporated so that they could have their own say about the community. And we had, we're like just starting to come out of like catch a breath after the fires. And then the president sent the National Guard here for like protests. And that has like our restaurant industries, our other industries are struggling because the entertainment industry is struggling. And then the fire shut down a bunch of businesses for a week and a half. And then again, with the military occupation, it's made a lot of people unwilling to go out and a lot of people nervous that if they do, they'll be snatched off the streets or their family will be affected. Even if they were born here, no matter, they're grabbing anyone. And so with that fear, it means people aren't going out as much. So it continues to be more and more of a depression here. Yeah.
So you and your community building skills, I mean, they're obviously always important, but especially in an emergency. So you really have been collapse prepping in a very concrete way in terms of being able to network and know people and like manage. You have the constitution to be able to manage arriving in sudden community, like just like boom, here I am, and like let's create a network and like let's start to stick to each other and weave the web, always important. However, you are in a prolonged economic, socio-political, and now even environmental emergency. So what have you learned about community as you're living through the longer aftermath and recovery of an emergency like the fires, or as you are, what are you learning about community in the long emergency of increasing totalitarianism and economic depression?
Community shows up. So we're all having a hard time. We're all having some of the roughest years of our life. And there's been so much there comes so much personal stress with the external stress too. And the community has to take turns showing up for people. Like, I have a little bandwidth now, and I can help you with this. And when I'm more depressed, you'll help me with this. Or, like, what can I do you can't do? Like, I can be a ride along with somebody to get stuff they left in another town, but I am going to have a hard time helping someone move.
Mm-hmm.
Or I might need help. I might go to a great community event, but then I need help washing my hair from someone more intimate with me later. And then also, I wanted to mention a quote. It's a Dan Savage quote. During the darkest days of the AIDS crisis, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced all night. The dance kept us in the fight because it was a dance we were fighting for. And my friends throw parties like really regularly. Most weekends, there's at least two big ones a month. And then we do other stuff like go to the park and pretend to be gnomes and play kazoos. And like everybody dresses up and makes like a meal that's a community meal. And if you potluck stuff, then food goes farther. The joy of just like pretending, making gnome puns in little voices in the park, that's a great joy. And we've also done things this year. Like I threw a party called Darkly Romantic, and it was like a dark fantasy vampire, dark romance party. And we just had one this weekend. And it was called Fuck the Monarchy. And we all dressed as our like flirtiest regal selves. And so some people had like full monarchical regal tops that went all the way down that had been hand stitched for accuracy to the French historical period, and then like hot pants on the bottom. I went as my most Barbie dress self so I could be like, get under my hoop skirts.
That's amazing. That's so cool. And you've also done like a potluck party where you did a little psychoeducation on contact nutrition, right? How was that received?
Okay, so
Tell us about it.
my friend Jamie had a birthday party that was summer camp themed, a little bit spooky summer camp themed. And she had a talent show as part of it. And I was saying, kind of as a joke to my new friends that I had only known for like 9 months, like, what if I did a slideshow? What if I did a PowerPoint presentation for the talent show? And they were like, yeah, do it. And I got that response from multiple people. I did a little bit of psychoeducation in like 5 to 10 minutes with the community building focus. And so I told them about contact nutrition and the way I talked about it earlier. And I talked to this community I had become a part of about how one of the things I noticed they needed most was to be able to accept help or ask for help, because it's really, you make better connections with people when you accept help with it from them, because then they feel invested in you and your story.
Mm.
And so that's an important part of it. But like, you can't always be giving. You are going to need help sometimes. And the point of community is that I help you and you help me, and we all rise together.
Mm.
That's the
Mm.
whole point of living, as far as I'm concerned.
Totally. So you are not only a community builder, you're a world builder in so many senses of the word. Like, and it seems like you're always engaged in something where art and design and costume and fantasy and community intersect. What are some of the other lessons we can learn from co-creating fantasy worlds that are applicable to how we co-create in the current realities, the current political, social, economic, environmental realities?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things is that we do to make our fantasy world safe is that there's kind of a community safety burden. The people who hold the spaces, run the communities, take more responsibility for them, those people are in contact with each other. And if somebody does something unsafe, people talk to each other about it and they let each other know. And we're also in the habit of repair. So, like, certain people have a history that like was difficult with another person, and other people are aware of it. And also those the people who have made attempts to repair and fix the damage and get better with their interactions with people are still a part of our community. And then there's also like people who we've tried to speak to about interactions, and I'm making a big community I may not have been
Mhm.
directly involved in all these situations, but
Mhm.
people who refused to show up and shut down and didn't communicate with us. And like, okay, well, you're not a safe person to be in our intimate spaces if you can't be someone we talk to about things,
Mhm.
if you're not
Mhm.
get better.
Mhm. Yeah, I imagine that I don't know, I've experienced that. I'm a like strong, bold, outspoken person, but even
Yeah.
I experiences where it's just like I'm trying all the avenues, I'm doing all the things. You're still not hearing me or accepting my reality or concerned about that kind of thing. So what do you do if you're community building, but you as a community or you as an individual perhaps are like, yeah, so I'm trying all the things and it's still not working. And I actually just don't really want to be in relationship with you. Like, does everybody know that? And you just kind of, everyone's still in the community. It's just that like those two people don't vibe. Like, because I would imagine that that would be really difficult if it's like these people are really not vibing and it's making it awkward for the concentric circles of people around them.
Yeah.
I
That's
guess I'm
true.
talking about coalition building in a way, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are people that just don't vibe. Like we're a poly community. There's divorces in here. So we kind of work around that and we love it when a couple decides to work things out together. So like they're having a divorce and they decide who goes to which parties,
Mm,
still doing it amicably.
mm,
That helps take a lot of burden off the rest of the community to manage their emotional situation
mhm,
as much as we want to help.
mhm.
And then what was the question again?
Well, like, how are the things that you're doing in your fantasy world and your parties and like that kind of stuff? How is it helping you, like, in the
Social
quote
action.
unquote real world? Not that that isn't the real world, it is, because that's
Yeah.
community and connection and all of that. But just like the way that you structure it so that you keep people as safe as possible, or if they're just not vibing, you're still in community or you're still able to cooperate because we're in the big tent together. Like we're all working class against the oppressor, for instance. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you take from like your creative communities, your poly community, and like how does it actually work boots on the ground if you have different, I don't know, politics or different beliefs about things or just like different relational preferences. And you're just like, yeah, I just don't want to be friends with them, but they're in my community and we
You don't
want to
have to
work
be
together for
friends with
freedom.
everybody.
What's that?
You don't have to be friends with everybody or like close with everybody to be polite and considerate and good and kind to them and like still see their value.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like people who are more analytical that I don't connect with as easily, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that analyzing things loses its value. Or like I went to a really great cabin weekend recently, and everybody was there to play board games and Magic the Gathering. And I don't really like those activities, but they were still happy to have me there with them, like nearby. And like that willingness to adjust for other people and like this, it's going to sometimes be inconvenient or annoying or whatever to be around people, but they still have value no matter what. And I think that's one of the things that's at the root of most fantasy stories that I loved was that the littlest person can have value, make a big difference. And like everybody adds something to our community, and I don't have to be as close with them as possible to recognize that.
Mm. I'm glad you brought up that theme of like even the littlest character, even the littlest, person, figure can have an impact and contribute because you actually like you don't one thing you don't see a lot of in like fantasy or world building adventure and fiction is when an entire community is super burnt out. It's just
Oh, yeah.
like super tired. And so you are sort of managing even amidst the ashes, the literal ashes. Do you ever find that it's just like, wow, there's actually just not enough resource here? Or there's not a lot of resource. We're all burnt out. Like, how are you all coping together? Or do you tend to find that somebody's got a little wave of capacity?
We tend to find that someone has a wave of capacity or has planned for it, or like planning for it is a great way that you deal with that. I know that I'm going to need to do this thing this time, so I'm going to protect my energy for that. Or there's also like just communication. So if this person is really burnt out on a problem and I'm having a similar problem, maybe they're not the right person to communicate with about my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That doesn't mean the relationship is less valuable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Less intimate. It's just that you're trying to be sensitive to each other's capacity. So you're
Yeah.
like throwing to someone else in the community?
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have a little community chat called I call the Strawberry Patch with people who have agreed to be in support of me and my journey and my mental health. And that way I can throw to the group and then the group can, like, someone who has capacity can reach out to me. I'm not like dumping on somebody in a moment that they're also in a moment.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a questers chat for like people who've been on quest with me or like, and they haven't all been on the same quest, but they like know each other now. So they're in community. And so people will throw to the chat and we have a shared language so they can be like, does anybody have bandwidth for listening today? I could do a voice note or a Zoom, whatever works for you. Does anybody have bandwidth just for a bit of mirroring? It'll probably be 20 minutes or something like that. And then sometimes it'll be quiet for a while and you just know that it's like, oh, not so much right now, but like at some point, people will come back in and be like, yes, I do. How's today at 5? Or send me a voice note anytime. I'll get back to you after supper or something like that. And it is really nice to have this sort of backup. It's not everything that, it's not every form of contact nutrition. It's not solving all the problems, but it's just like having insurance, or it's like Tylenol in your medicine cabinet. It's like I
Yes,
can
it
just
is.
go get a little painkiller. It's not solving anything, but it's going to be like it's going to assuage this wave of emotion that I just can't manage on my own.
But it is solving something. It's solving that you don't like maintain the patterning in your body, right?
Mm.
If you deal with things more on your own, you're more likely to keep the trauma in your body
Right.
and
Somatize it. Hmm.
somatize it. And if you are able to move through it and process through it, which can be a lot easier with co-regulation, then it's exactly like Advil. I've had a pain in my shoulder for the last week. But Advil was the best treatment for it because you take the inflammation down to take the inflammation down.
Right.
It gets more irritated if it's more inflamed and rubbing on more bones wrong. And like, yeah.
Right. Right. So it's
So
like it actually is solving the problem.
it actually is solving a problem. Actually, company and community are needs that real people have, or that
Yes.
all people have.
Yes. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. For
yeah.
sure. So, given that it hasn't changed the material realities of what's happening in LA, especially for creative people, but you have done all of this like pre-work to be a little more collapse proof, or not proof, but like collapse resilient. I'm curious, like, what are you looking forward to? Or like, what is your own personal kind of ongoing care? It's not aftercare because it's the long emergency is still happening, but like, how are you tending to these needs for not only economic security, but like, I don't know, professional fulfillment and stuff? Like, do you even think about hopes and dreams of the future? Are you staying pretty close and like staying very present with like sensation and emotion? Where are you personally at in this process?
I am big into dreaming of the future. I am big into like Adrienne Marie Brown's work and Octavia Butler's work. And I just, if we can't imagine better, then we can't do better. So that's why I keep, like, my golden rule is that you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I want to be treated like a treasure, like
Yeah.
gold. So I'm going to treat other people like treasure or like gold. Like, I want people to be better after interacting with me. And I want my values to come through in everything I do and be active. So there's some dreaming of the future and there's some being flexible with the now. And you have to hold like both of those truths because we get a lot of sudden things that we're not expecting. It's really hard to predict tomorrow, but also, what would I like tomorrow to look like? Well, I'd like it to be kind. I'd like us to share resources. So we like share food and we share textiles and share clothes and share tools and share knowledge and teach each other about neuroscience. And we teach each other about camping and we teach each other any skills we don't have. And that just makes it future proofs the whole community. The more people that know that they can easily have community, easily build a secure attachment. Not easily. It's still a fight every day, but like the more people know that we can do that, the better things get and the faster like it'll be exponential growth.
And it's so needed. I mean,
Yeah.
as you say, your streets, your businesses are still being rated by your own government. And so this is such good practice, feeding each other, housing each other, repair and mending, whether that's relationships or materials, like this all, and offering sanctuary spaces of community and sudden community and belonging. I mean, these are just the best collapse skills you could possibly hope to have. So circling back, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, we do it digitally some too. And that's a thing that you could do anywhere, is just like the group chat I was talking about, where you can have a chat with friends about that are into buy nothing, where you can trade items and share resources, or you can plan parties. We do it with nothing. So like, what does this person have that they can use? And what does this person have that we can use? And like my friends are all spending a week building a blanket fort right now for the
Oh, this
fort
is the annual blanket fort
annual
party, because I
fort
remember
party.
it from last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody annually goes to this, spends a week building this fort and then gets to enjoy it. And like, thank God for the people that whose idea it is and who have the house. But then there's also like 20 to 50 other people helping to build it. And then it has to have a max capacity of 100 because it's a house.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. You're literally world building as a way to
Yes.
cope with this world falling apart. You're like, well, we're just going to proceed as though this is the world we live in, because this is the world we prefer.
Yeah. Well, and also we're going to proceed as though this is valuable and this is art, and making art with our friends is the important thing we can do. And this is what we're living like for. This is the hope that we have, is that life will be with each other and making art together and dreaming of the new world together.
So coming down to the last question, it kind of circles us back to that. If you don't ask for help, you somatize things. So I'm curious, how do you cope with your grief and your rage these days, and your loss, the loss of economic opportunity, maybe certain hope streams or careers? I don't know, maybe that's not really the case for you, but how are you coping with the shadow aspects of, the fact that there's 20 to 50 people available to make blanket fort this week because nobody has a job?
Some of them also, it's been 10 years that they've done it, that some of them are taking time off their jobs to do it, just to put that
Amazing.
out there. But cope with it by feeling it sometimes. Sometimes you got to do the despair. But also, I've been setting up systems. So even in those times, I can still move forward with my projects, which are like, I do art illustrations and I'm a coach, and I have my own podcast called Asteria's Convos. And I have worked with a friend to set up systems that work for me to keep moving forward, even when I'm in my most despairing.
Like, what
Um,
kind of systems? I 100% know there are people right now who are like, oh my God, please tell me, what are they?
yeah. So first, she helped me dump everything out of my brain and write it down for me. And then we set up action items, like what are the things that are actually going to help you move forward now? What are later things? And then I wasn't so overwhelmed by not knowing how to do stuff, like what order to do things in. And I had less to focus on. And then I still needed to take it down even further to what's the next first step on these action items. And then I have a little list of 6 things or so that are my next first steps. And hopefully, one of those is a thing that I can get my ADHD and autistic and chronically ill brain to work on today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Amazing.
And
And so it's
sometimes,
like,
well, and she helped me figure out which things I do that are valuable that I wasn't valuing, like networking breakfasts or getting out in the sun or like those things that I need for my creativity or the creativity I need to keep moving on business stuff, valuable too.
Totally. And so great that you have a community member who's like, I'm going to jam on this with you. You've given so much. Let me give to you. What
Yeah,
about rage? How are you getting your rage out?
rage. I think rage is the one I'm worst with. Like go to punk shows. That's pretty good. But I definitely think rage is the one I have the hardest time like feeling and accessing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more in grief and despair. Like, ugh, how am I going to move forward? How am I going to? And then when I get really mad about the systems, it doesn't feel useful. It doesn't feel active for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I try to shift my rage into like action I can take. What can I actually affect? Because I can't like end capitalism now.
Right. Do you think you've transmuted some of your rage by being like, fuck you, I'm Polly and I've got a huge community and we're going to have blanket forts. Like, we're going to go to cool festivals and shows where we get to dress in future urban outfits and we're going to do something sassy to like kind of buck the system.
Yeah, there's a lot of fuck the system going on. Like, it looks super alternative, and that's kind of fuck the system. Like, I'm not going to work for you unless you can accept me as I am. And there's a lot of like, fuck the system we're going to share with each other. And like, yeah, I would say fuck the system is in a lot of it. We have our group chats for like, how can we have more native plants and how can we share textiles? And there is a lot of fuck the system. We're all queer mostly, and it's just not in us to trust the government or they're not coming for us. So we have to be here for each other and fuck the system. And also for everyone else as well. Like we may be largely queer and neurodivergent and poly, but like fuck the system for all people, not just us.
I feel like y'all would make a space at the table for a normie like me.
I don't think you're a normie. You've been talking about collapse for a decade.
Well, feel pretty not LA, let's put it that way. You know,
Ah,
it's like you're casting a wide net. I can feel it.
that's true. People have this idea that LA people are pretentious and fancy, I think. And my experience is that LA people are so accepting of anybody to be whoever they are.
Mm.
And that's the thing that makes it so there's so many unique people here and so many gay people here and so much art here is that LA is like, do whatever you want as long as it's not hurting anyone. And
Mm.
that's what the small businesses and the local businesses are like that I go and support. And they've all got up signs that say like, come back with a warrant for ICE. Or like we've got places that are like recycling textiles because an effect of the fire was that so much community here wanted to donate clothes. They were like, that's what we have. We have a lot of clothes, which is an excess problem in the US with fast fashion. But it was way more clothes than could be given out with the infrastructure we have, even though volunteers spent like a month every day passing out clothes.
Mm.
So there's a company here called Sway Sew Shop, and they're taking those textiles and turning them into things people actually want and need and recycling them and into clothes and pillows. And they do dye baths so you can dye your clothes. And LA is a like town for ideas and dreams and ambitions. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for humanizing something that seems so distant or like on the big screen or in the television. And thank you for sharing how it's been not just since the fires, but for a long, long time. And I'm really honored and so delighted that you're in my community. And thank you for sharing your community with the listeners. I'm glad you're here, Asteria.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I'm really glad I could be here too.
Hey, if you happen to be in LA, Asteria has a workshop coming up on October 19th called Embodiment of Refuge. It's at the Makery in downtown LA, and I'll link to that in the show notes. And if you need mentoring, mirroring, or magical support to help your community coalesce and thrive, check out Asteria's website, stargirlcreative.com, and I'll link to that in the show notes as well. You'll find the show notes in your podcast player or at numinouspodcast.com. My listener shout out is not really a listener shout out. Lately, I've been doing book reviews. And so I want to thank Annetto, who gave my book Spells for the Apocalypse 5 stars on Goodreads. I haven't really promoted spells that much, and I haven't asked my community to give it a review, but I think maybe I will now. So if you would like to go onto Goodreads and give it a review, just tell people, even if it wasn't for you, tell people who it was for. I would be so appreciative. So this is my love going out to Annetto, who maybe hears this, but hopefully something good will happen to that queen today. She gave my book 5 stars and said, technically, I will never finish this book because it is within grabbing range on my reading couch and the wisdom is ready to be released as needed. A perfect little gift as well. It sure is. It's a perfect little gift, tiny little book. Really pretty, really cute, but also it's like something you can hold, like a talisman. So if you know somebody who's really going through it, really going through a hard time, this will be a good book for them. Okay, finally, registration for my Trans Work Practitioner Mini Certificate closes on September 30th. Finally decided that's the date. September 30th, registration closes. It's a barefoot doctor style approach to trans work that will give you the guardrails you need to keep people safe in states of relaxed and focused concentration, particularly if you're someone who works with a population that has experienced sexual trauma or has had negative experiences involving altered states of consciousness, perhaps even with substance use, or who has had a history with a high-demand group or cult dynamics. This will be a helpful and informative training for you. You can read all about it under the Trainings tab at carmenspagnola.com. CarmenSpagnola. Until next time, take care.